been a great interview. I
Yeah,
feel like we're just talking. It's just like a conversation between two teachers that really
yeah,
understand what's going on, you know?
yeah. It's really like, yeah, it's really relaxing to talk with another teacher and see like, so I'm in California. Where are you based out of?
I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm on the other side of the
So
country.
no matter that we're on the other side, we're both facing the same issues. Like it doesn't matter what school, right? Like public,
Right. I
private,
mean,
charter, whatever.
the environment, and you hear a lot of people talking about the political climate and whatnot. All that, has been rocky for decades, and
Hmm.
we still have the same problem. So, like for me as a teacher, until those AI robots come in and drag me out of the school, I'm gonna do and continue to try to work the best I can to help my students. That's it.
That's cool. And you feel like, even though you've created your books, you still want to be in the front lines with the kids. Like you're not wanting to move up to admin or teach college level. You want to stay in it.
I played around with that idea, Tess. I won't lie. I did try because some of my colleagues, like, you really would make a great principal. I think, you'd do great as a leader, school leader. Problem is this, and I've tried, and I've talked to these people, and I think a part of me I know that I would probably do well. But I'm also like, I'm no nonsense kind of guy. I'm that guy that'll stand up in the middle of the meeting and say, hold on a second. Hold on a second. We're not considering X, Y, and Z. And when you reach the admin's world from people that I know that are friends and my personal friends of mine that are in that world, they're like, that's the last thing they want.
Is
I could
someone
be
who
doing the
speaks their
job, but
mind.
I have friends that are in that world, and they told me, yeah, they kind of don't like people doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very direct, and then I make decisions, and I want to move, and I want it to be like systematic. But I want real change. I don't want like surface level Band-Aid change. So
Here's the thing, though, Tessa. The thing that worries me is that if I were in that situation, I would want to be in the classroom still. I've worked with principals that say it all the time. Oh, I'm gonna teach a class this year. It's gonna be different this year, but they get sucked into that world and they don't have time to do it.
yeah, yeah, they're pretty bogged down, and I would say like now I feel like there's more that's pushing them away and busying their minds with social media and like sexting and harassment with students and parents, and then budget, and now
I'm
looking
not
at
sure if it's
department of
worth the
ed.
headache. I mean, the difference in salary is really
It's not that much for
not that much
sanity.
to be worth the hassle.
I also
So, I
thought
mean,
about that too with politics, and I was like, well, I can go into politics, but I'm going to be batting against a brick wall, or I could speak my mind on YouTube and like create change that way. I feel like it's a better way to go.
I think at the end of the day, you have to follow your heart, Tess. And my heart tells me continue doing what you're doing. You're working. You're doing your own little contribution to society, helping these students out. They may not remember you, but that's not the point. You did your part, and that at the end of the day, I could sleep at night, late at night, but I could sleep at night. No, I'm gonna be up editing tonight too, Tess. It's just
I'm
that's
not
just my
sure
world.
when you sleep. Like I'm a little bit curious. You're busier than I am, and I feel pretty
Oh
busy.
yeah,
But I also like, okay, your wording in there though, I'm going to check you on that because you're like, I did this little part. It's a big part that you're doing, and you're
Mhm.
benefiting a lot of people, and they do remember you because they're contacting you. You're at every
Yeah.
quinceanera. What are you talking about?
They do. They come look once in a while. They do come looking for me, and it's a
Yeah.
joy to see them. And I was telling this one teacher the other last week, and I was like, you're not going to believe Roberto came by and see me. He goes, Roberto? I go, yeah. He can't be 15 years old. He can't be more than 15, 16 years old, and he's driving this huge truck.
Oh,
And
jealous.
I remember, I leaned into the window of his truck. I'm like, you're not even you're barely 16 years old. How are you driving this massive beast of a truck? And he's like, oh. I was like, you like it? He's like, you like it? I'm like, I love it. I
Yeah.
mean, I love it. This is a beautiful truck. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah. Take me for
I
a
didn't,
cruise.
I, I didn't ask him how he got it.
I hear that.
And
Right?
you're like not legally able to drive it, but hey.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
That,
gonna do it.
I had that one year. I had a 14-year-old who his parents were giving him keys, and he was driving to school, and he described, without knowing the word hydroplaning, that had hydroplaned, and he was nervous. And I was like, that's because you should not be driving. You don't even know what you're doing,
You
right?
gotta be going fast to do that.
God. Yeah, I told
Wow.
for school security, and you know, they were like, we're not going to take the car away from him, Tess, because his parents will get him another one. I was like, that doesn't make sense to me at all. Like, this kid almost got totally injured, but
Well,
whatever.
remember we were having that part of the conversation earlier about why I talk to certain boys and separate from the girls. It's that cultural nuance. I'm telling you, they start really young and they feel like they're already men at that age.
Yeah, yeah. They do tell me, the boys were really good at telling me, like, hey, when I go back home to Mexico, Miss Timmons, like, I go do what I want when I want. And when I come back, it's hard for me sometimes to listen to you because you're kind of bossing me around and I'm not used to it. And I'm like, I just
Yeah.
told you to sit down, or like you need a pass to
Yeah.
get whatever.
It's like,
But
it's
they're
just
like,
like,
yeah, but at least they were open to talking to me about it. They were like, it's hard for me to take rules from you because for a month I didn't have any rules. There's no rules. So I really appreciated them having that open conversation with me so we could work together and figure it out.
it's
Yeah.
when you're the only one in your building, it's like the teachers will come or they'll send a student to come get me. Dorian, there's such and such need you. I'm like, okay, and I go walking in and he goes, she's like, I need you to talk to, Juan because XYZ and blah blah blah. I'm like, uh okay. Come with me, Juan. And I'm like, I don't really know the boy that well. But it's like, okay, let's sit down, let's talk. What's going on? And then we'll talk and we'll talk in Spanish, and he's like, oh, you talk Spanish. I'm like, duh, come on, man. You're gonna play this game with me? Seriously? So it's like,
How do you deal with that as a teacher, being like tokens like that? Like, how do you help the teachers figure out, like, you need to figure out a way to communicate with your class? Like, you can't just always bring me in, or like, how do you deal with that? I don't know. That's hard.
look, I mean, they're just my colleagues. I'm just as guilty as anyone to call in one of my female colleagues and say, I need you to talk to this girl about X, Y,
Mm.
Z.
Oh, okay,
We got
yeah.
a girl, and I loved her. She was a beautiful girl. She was sweet, but man, she had some serious body odor. Serious body odor. And I wasn't going to have that conversation with her. You understand? Like I called one of my female colleagues and says, I need you to have this conversation with her.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I hear that.
You know what I mean? Like
And
there's
what
some
do you
things
mean?
where I need to get somebody else involved, or
Yeah,
I'll call the counselor over. I'm like, listen, you need to have a girl talk with this girl.
yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Like, we're a team, we gotta help each
So
other.
it's like when you call me because one is acting the way he is, it's fine because I'll do the same thing. I'll call somebody over to help me with the girl issue, for example.
Yeah.
Or if it's a kid like I talked to the principal once because this boy was accusing me of racism or something. I'm like, you need to have this conversation with this boy. You know, not everybody who tells him to get out of the hallway is a racist. Okay.
You know, my students were saying that a lot last year, and so we had a conversation about, like, where are you getting this from, and why is this now a catchphrase? And it was very much so a weird TikTok thing where they were like, racist, racist, and I was
Yeah.
like, that's not even what we're talking about. Like, that's not, yeah. I caught a kid cheating on a test. All of his notes were under his desk, like stuffed in, and he was like, this is racist. I was like, oh, let's back up. Like, what are we
Yeah.
talking about here?
Cheating
Yeah,
isn't a race.
this has nothing to do with race, buddy. Yeah, that was weird.
So I mean those are the things that go on in the room, in the class, in the schoolhouse, and I think
Yeah,
that's I'm where I belong. Tess.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. What grade are you teaching this year? What grades?
Sixth
Sixth
grade.
grade?
Mind you, I hemmed and hawed about it because I started my career working with sixth graders, and it's like
Okay.
I looked up in the ceiling. At some point in this meeting when the principal was explaining to me that I was going to be sixth grade teacher, I looked up in the ceiling and I'm like, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" And my teacher was like laughing. He was like, "This has nothing to do with him." I was like, "Well, why am I here then?"
Yeah, yeah,
And he explained to me why, and I understood, and I accepted it. I'm like, fine, I understand. I understand. I will do my absolute best.
yeah. I taught like seventh grade 12 years ago, and then I taught like high school for 10, and now
Mm.
I'm back to seventh grade, and I don't know what I was thinking, but it's interesting. It's so different than 3 years ago, than 5 years ago. It's vastly different than 12 years ago.
Oh
Like,
yes.
but I do talk to the students about like, hey, my seventh grade students, used to be able to write like 10-page reports. Like, like we're still making it through the essay. But yeah, it's a different world. It's a
It's a
totally
very
different
different
world.
world. When I started my career, sixth grade girls were drawing on their arms, and some of them still. But now sixth grade girls are putting makeup on in class.
Oh yeah. So that's how I invented my ingredient research unit last year, is because the girls were taking out their eyelash curlers in my
Mm.
class and like, very TikTok, taking out their makeup. And I was like, oh, is this beauty school? And so I was like, wait, I'm like, you're beautiful, but we're working on your mind right now, right? And that wasn't cutting it. So I was like, okay, we're going to actually talk about ingredients and makeup and hygiene products and go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. And then I also had to explain to them, like, hey, your eyelash curler, you're setting that on a dirty school desk, and then you're
Yeah.
putting it back up to your, and then you're throwing it in your bag that has Taki crumbles all over in your backpack. Like, where's the contain? Let's talk about hygiene for a minute. Let's talk about beauty for a minute. Like, what are we doing around here?
Maybe you can answer this question, Tess. When did Takis become a thing?
Right? Okay,
It
I
wasn't
would
there at
say.
the beginning for me. I don't know. It just somewhere along the line, this thing called Takis shows up.
I would say like 5 years ago in America, I was seeing it more, but my students were saying they were eating Takis for years in Mexico. And then like I was teaching at a high school and the middle school banned Takis because this was like maybe 7 years ago now, because all of their fingers were touching all of the library books and they were getting the library books read, and then all of the keyboards were getting read, and I was like, oh, what's happening? And then when I moved from high school to middle
Oh,
school last year, I was sick, sicker than a dog, and I was calling other teachers like, I don't know why I'm still so sick. And they were like, Tess, you just went from high school to middle school. Those kids are picking their nose, eating Takis, licking their hands, touching
yeah.
their keyboards, and they go, are you walking over and touching their keyboard to help them type? And I was like,
Yeah.
yes, yes, I am. I was like, all right. So the next day I went to school and I went to work, right? And I look around, and sure enough, picking the nose,
I'm
licking
not
their
laughing
fingers.
at you, but that is hilarious.
And I was like, oh God,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. It's a Taki nation, man. They have huge bags of Takis that are like in their
I want
backpacks.
nothing to do with it. The kids are always like, "You're talking." And then, yeah, I don't touch that stuff, man. I don't
Yeah.
touch that
So
stuff.
last year we did a deep dive on ingredients. They used apps, Yuka and Bobby Flav City apps, and we scanned. Each student had to scan 10 products at home and with their families and in their backpacks, whatever. And so then we wrote to these companies, but the students who did a deep dive on Takis found that like that red 40 reroutes your brain and causes ADHD. So I was like, so you understand now when you're
Whoa.
eating Takis at 8 a.m. and you're wilding out in my classroom and I tell you to sit down, you just did that. You caused me to tell you to like now this interaction is happening because of your Takis, right? And they're because of many things. But yeah, like so then the students are like, oh my gosh, I'm I'm doing that with Takis. So they wrote to Taki's company and then showed them a comparison product from Trader Joe's that makes the same thing without the red 40 in it. They talked about what red 40 does to our bodies. We did the Catholic guilt strategy. We did a walkaway strategy. We held their hand to make them better and help our world be a better place. And so some students heard back. We did not hear back from Taki Company.
I didn't think you
Yeah, yeah. But the
would.
students had to use fiscal analysis at the very beginning, their opening paragraph, and they had to figure out like how many bags of Takis do you eat per week? Okay, multiply that by months. Okay, how many years have you been eating Takis? And one student was like, "Oh my gosh, Miss Davis, I've spent over $3,000 on Takis," and they were freaking out. And I was like, "Well, you're a high-rated consumer, right? Here you are with your own money buying Takis, right?"
This is so great that they're able to do that, and and really like piece together, like it starts to come together like the jigsaw.
Yes, and their
It's really
brains start, ooh, and then we're looking at relevance, we're looking at math, we're looking at history, we're looking at science, all happening at the same time. So, yeah, it was, but it all came because my girls were doing makeup in class.
that's
That's what I
great.
was looking at.
No,
I was like,
it's funny you brought that up because that's one of the lessons in the book, that I Want to Learn English book.
oh,
Yeah, well, one of the lessons is we take some products like things you buy like cans or bags of chips, whatever.
yeah,
And what I in the teacher edition, I talk about how we in my class, what we normally do is I'll bring a grocery bag in, right? And
Yeah.
there's a couple of things we're looking at. We're looking at expiration dates, right? We're
Uh-huh.
looking at calories and that sort of thing. I expand on the lesson than what's in the book. The book is basically focusing on expiration dates because I always ask students, I go, when you pick up a carton of milk, do you ever look at the date on it? They're like, no. I'm like, so how do you know you're buying something that's fresh and not rotten? You go, like, what? I'm like, so I brought in some like look at it, they see the date. I'm like, oh, that's like expired like last week. I'm like, yeah. And you were like
Yeah.
gonna open it and drink it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't look at
That's
the
beautiful.
date on these things. Let's look at this bread.
That's beautiful.
And look at the date on this, you know? So like the book is very it's like remember because it's geared for adults too. It started with just adults and I kind of crept it downward towards high school and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's like this there's I go into many different themes, many different topics that are relatable. You know, we do there's
And
an
a
application
lot of
on
that
there,
is,
you know, there's just conversations and
yeah.
calendars and whatnot. Go ahead. I'm
A
sorry.
lot of the relatable is the vocational, right? And like
Yeah.
when I look around the world, I read this book by Keith Ballard, and it was he uses the word stealing. I like learning, but stealing from the world's, stealing from the schools around the world, the best schools around the world, and he found that like majority of the schools around the world have vocational programs. That America is the only ones really that have cut out a lot of our like kinesthetic learning. Like, uh, I just find it fascinating. Like, I was at one school and they got rid of all of the wood shop. They tore it down and then they put in 3D printers. 3D printers are kind of interesting, right? They're cool, but
Yeah.
they don't hold the student's attention span like the carpentry did. Or one school had like an onboarding program where they would make snowboards, surfboards, skateboards. And I feel like in a math class, if you had a whole bunch of skaters, skateboarders in that
Mhm.
class, and you had to make like a skateboard ramp using math, I think every kid would get it. Like, where's our hands-on learning? But like you bringing in that milk jug, I do that too. I bring in like a receipt from the store and I have them look at how much money I spent. How much did I spend on vegetables? How much did I spend here? And then I bring in like boxes of, like a bag of Takis and
Mhm.
whatnot. And I have that collected so they can hold it and look at it. And like that kind of learning is so important. And it's basic learning. Like, how do I
Yeah.
feed myself? How do I love myself? Yeah,
Yeah. No, there's a whole section on eating healthy foods
that's cool.
versus bad, like unhealthy foods, like sugary foods and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
cool.
but see that I leave it open enough to where the teacher can take it wherever they want to go. Like you
Yeah,
can kind of take it into this whole like talking about how much stuff we eat that's bad for us, that sugar that causes diabetes and causes all kinds of other ailments if we don't watch what we eat, right?
yeah,
And it's stuff like that because when you're a kid, you just want to cram anything you want in your mouth and not think about how that's going to affect you down the road.
yeah.
And I always tell my kids, if you reach a certain age where you just can't do that anymore. And they're like, why? I'm like, well, because look at me. I'm an older guy now. So if I start eating like I did when I was 25, I'm probably going to croak. I won't last too long because you got to take care of your body. If you don't, your body's just going to break down like a car.
I could start feeling that at like 35 for sure. There were certain
Mhm.
things happening where I was like, oh, I can't eat the same or even wear the same kind of makeup, like cheaper makeup would affect my eyes. Then
Right.
at 40, I was like, all right, 40s aren't so bad. They feel pretty good. 40 to 43, I was like, I think I got a handle on this.
You're like,
45 hit 45 hit hard, man. That was,
yeah,
that was so
yeah.
hard. I'm 46 this year. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just have to deal with life differently. I'm tired more though. I'm definitely tired more.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things my wife and I do now is we go to the gym, right?
Hmm.
It's like I feel like this second wind, if you will, where
Good. Yeah.
I'm approaching my mid 50s, but I feel stronger. I feel more energy. I still, I have my knee bum, or my lower back once in a while, but I felt that in my 20s. So it's just
Mm.
if you're in the gym and if you do your body right, your body will do you right.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that totally. I had like a surgery this year on my arm. We had to cut the bicep off the tendon and reroute it. So I've
Mhm.
had to go really slow about getting back to the gym. but I've noticed it's definitely impacted me because I love going, and so I feel the difference of probably that lethargic feeling is because I'm not using my body enough. So now I'm starting to go back and I can lift like 5 pounds in this hand, a little bit, 10 pounds sometimes.
Mm.
Um, but I'm starting to use like the cycle bike again so I can actually work up a sweat and feel that endorphin
Use your
rush.
legs. If your arms aren't there, use your legs.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Your
really
legs are
like,
like the motor. Like their legs. That's where you
yeah,
burn anyway. That's why people go running. Because
yeah, yeah,
the legs are where it's at if you want to burn.
yeah. And it was
You
shocking
look
to me
really
to,
thin to me, though. I mean, you look really thin to me, so you probably don't want to burn too much.
oh no, I've got a lot there. I've got a lot going on. Uh, no, but it's interesting because I like just in October was my surgery, and then now is March, right? But even just having that much time away from my natural fitness,
Mm,
I can feel the difference. I've had a little bit of depression because I haven't had my endorphins, right? And like
mm.
how it makes me value now that I'm able to get back to it, just how much I need to care for my body for sure.
I
Yeah.
think that's what teachers need more.
I think so,
Teachers
definitely.
need more time to like work on their bodies because, like you said, the endorphin. It's true. When I'm done with my workout, man, I never feel better than when I work out. I work out, man. I take that shower. I come out of the gym, man. That cool air hits me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm on top of the world, baby. This is it.
Yeah. The amount of stress that we have and just knowing all of the different socioeconomic issues that are going on, we take on a lot, right? Like when I used to bring police and district attorneys into my classroom for students to talk to, we did a whole criminal justice unit. I would
Yeah.
ask the police officers, like, how do you, just like medical field, how do you release all of this trauma that you've just experienced in your day, right? And we think about EMTs and we think about police, but like as teachers, like we're experiencing a lot of watching trauma and seeing the results of trauma and seeing the
Yeah.
results of negligence. And so, how do we? We're carrying a lot of weight of the future and current issues. Like, how do we get that off of us? Like,
Well,
that's
one of the
huge.
one of the ways, and I remember one of my professors in my undergrad university said, you need to have a hobby, something that's not related to education, because if not, you will burn yourself out. And
Yeah.
I took that to heart, which is why I write books, which is why I write, why I do movies, I direct movies. This is why I do all kinds of creative projects. I'm always like working on something, or I'm editing a video, or I'm doing a YouTube channel thing, or because that's my outlet. Because before that, I was a musician for years.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I used to play keyboards. I was a singer in a band. I played for years.
Dude,
And
you're
all
cool.
around town, man. I was in a rock and roll band. I was that guy, long hair, leather jacket. I'd be out there, hey everyone, how's everybody doing tonight? Yay! The crowd goes wild. And that was me for years.
Is there any better feeling? I would say no, and I don't play music, but I go to live Coachella, I go to live concerts all the time. Is there anything better than a crowd roaring for you?
No, it's a to me, that's probably why I continue doing YouTube and all this other stuff because I like that feeling that people are watching and being entertained. That's why I like doing films. I go to a film festival where they're showing my movie on the screen and hear that
Wow.
applause when it's over. And we did the whole Q&A. People ask me, well, where did you get the inspiration to do this? And where did you get the inspiration to do that? And I'm like, cool, man. And this is my zone, man. This is my zone because I'm not that young guy anymore. So like I can't, I'm not like the Rolling Stones. I'm just gonna be doing this in my 60s. There's just no way. It's not happening. But
But you
uh,
mentored
that part
kids.
of my brain is still very, very active, and it wants it, craves it. So I think that's one of the reasons why I do so many things because
Right? It's
whatever.
our creativity, and I think it's a little bit of my ego as well, right? Like, but I
Well,
also
yeah,
find like if I make a podcast, I get to talk to adults,
yeah.
and we get to talk about like so many different subjects. So a lot of people have said like, "Oh, what's your podcast? What's your niche?" Right? Like, "Oh, is it fitness? Is it this?" And I'm like, I don't want one thing because I'm with students all the time. I want time with adults. I want to hear all these different things going on in the world, but also you and I are both very curious, right? Like
Yeah,
so we have many things that we're interested in. Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, what are you making a film now? Like what are you
I
working on now?
Yes. Well, right now I'm in post production of the film that I made. that's based on that podcast, the one that got me these awards.
Okay.
Based on an American king, right? America enters a monarchy, and is an authoritarian king who he's vicious, but he's attacking like all the Illuminati people, all the people that like the devil worshippers and all those people that we you know
Okay.
conspiracy theories love to talk about.
Yeah.
So it's like a war between evil and more evil, if you will,
Okay.
and everybody is caught in the middle of it. And so there's this dynamic between the king because people are enamored with the king, and he's trying to find all of his enemies who were once part of the same cabal. He was part of that, and he turned on them, right?
Oh, okay.
So the film that I'm doing is based on a particular part of that podcast and the show, and the part of the show where the king he's stuck in a very, very pivotal part of his life, not just as the king, but in his personal life, because he finds out that his father-in-law, the queen's father, is embroiled in a big treachery against him, and
Mm.
he has to deal with him to the point where he has to have him killed, right? But of course, the wife, the queen, is devastated by this because it's her father, and she, of course, blames it. And so, like, it's a very pivotal point in the story because from that point on, things are not the same. It's not the
Okay.
same for him. It's not the same for his marriage. It's not the dynamic that he had with his wife is severed. And like everything goes downhill from that point on, which is why I decided that was the part of the story that I was going to make the movie on. So for
Oh.
somebody who has no idea what this story is about, will be able to kick back and watch this film. It's like, wow, this is pretty interesting. All this drama that's going on, right? And if there's any curiosity as to, okay, well, where is this story going and where did it come from? Then they can go back to the podcast and listen to the podcast and hear the story. Hear like it's an audio drama. It's a cinema for your ears. You
So
listen.
did you write the story
Yes.
first and then put it on podcast, and now you're bridging parts of it into film?
So here's how this comes into this connection here. I was doing a story. How I got into podcasting is another story for itself, but I'll try to make it bite size. I was doing research in the intonation of English, right? And I was comparing American English today and how people speak it with how people spoke it at the turn of the century. So I had to go back to the old CBS radio, right, and find those clips from, when before television. So what they sounded like, what the intonation was like. So I was doing all that.
Why were
And
you doing that? Why did you care?
trying to find inflection differences, right? I was doing some project for this, and this is where it led to. I started listening to current podcasting to make the comparison, and I completely got sidetracked because once I started listening to podcasting and American podcasting today, I'm like, oh my God, this is cool. I can do this. And it's like, when you go to the store looking for bread, but you end up over here in this other aisle, that's what happened. And so I'm like, I go to school and I'm telling my students, and my students are like, what are you doing, Mr. Torres? I'm like, oh, well, I was listening to this podcast and I brought this microphone in, right? And I was going to start doing this. Like, well, we want to do it too. We want to help out with you. You do? It's like, okay, let's do this podcast and let's come up with something, right? And so the kids, my ESOL kids, at that time in that class helped me decide on the podcast and said, they were like, okay, well, we should do like a big podcast. I'm like, okay, well, describe to me what big is.
Wow.
And they're like, how big are we talking about? Are we talking about like the size of a television? Oh, no, 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 Mr. Tor. We're talking real, real big. Okay, well, how big is big? Like the governor? And they're like, no, not the bigger than the governor. So what's bigger than the governor? They said, the president. Okay, well, what's bigger than the president? And one of the little girls in the back said, I know, Mr. Torres, a king. I'm like, a king? We make a king in America. What do you guys think? Yes, yes. And they're like, let's go with it. They all run. Let's do a story about a king in America. Well, how are we going to sell this? Like, how are we going to? Nobody's going to believe this. It goes, well, Mr. Torres, you're a writer. You can make them believe it. And that
Um,
filled my head. My head went like this.
did they help you write the storyline as well?
They came up
Wow,
with
that's so
part of like
cool.
we as a class decided that we were going to do a story about a king taking over America. The original story was that a king came out of nowhere and took over America. I'm like, well, nobody's going to believe that. How about we bring it from inside, like somebody's already there? And so then I lost them. They were just like, they were not able to think in those terms. So I said, okay, well, let me figure out how the king gets there, and then you guys help me figure out what the king does. And that was the project. And so then we put it on the board. Okay, so this is the king. What are we gonna call him? Like we got to come up with a name, And so we came up with all these weird names. He goes, well, there was a general in the Bible. His name was Silas.
Mm.
I'm like, and so I looked it up, and sure enough, the kid was right. There's a general in the Bible. I forget what book he's in. I think he's in the Old Testament. His name was Silas, and he was known as a very brilliant general. He was a brilliant general of the army, right?
Ooh.
And I'm like, well, we can't just call him Silas. We got let's ask because there was already a King Silas in a TV show.
Oh, okay.
In the 90s, I think it was called. It was a show called Kings. It had one season.
Huh.
And the name of the king, and it wasn't called America, but it was America. And his name was Silas.
Okay.
And it was King Silas. So I'm like, well, we can't call it that because there was already a TV show with that. But I like it. And so we called him a Silas. We just put an A in front of it.
Cool. Now, did you research that to make sure there wasn't another show like that, or did you already know of that other show?
Yeah, no, I was actually familiar with that other show because I actually liked that other show. And that's what I knew when the kid said Silas. I'm like, well, I didn't need the research because I already knew.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
When you made the show, did the students help you with any of the voices, or is it your voice on the podcast
there
all
was
the time?
one girl who was
Wow.
brave enough to actually, she played the part of, there was a character we invented, and her name was Abigail. And at first, it was weird because people thought that the king was enamored with this young girl, right? Which is a weird dynamic. And they're like, oh, he's one of those creepazoid kind of kings. I'm like, no. And so then they figured, no, it's actually his secret daughter, right?
Oh, cool.
Right? So it's like, it's his secret daughter, but the secret daughter is way more powerful than him.
Ooh.
That's a problem. You see?
Oh, okay. It's kind of reminding me of Dune a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we had a problem. I said we have two problems. Her name was Castillo. I can't remember her first name off the top of my head now. She's forgive me. Naomi Castillo. That was her name. And I said we have two problems, Naomi. She goes, what's that? I said you're in eighth grade. You're going to high school next year, and your voice is changing. She's like, why is that a problem? I said because probably I'm not going to ever see you again after this school year. So we got to do something about your character. She goes, you're going to kill me, right? I'm like, yep. Yep. So we got to figure out how to write this so you go out with like sensational. So she was part of the whole death of this character.
Interesting.
Yes. So she was part of it. Well, I don't want her to just like die like in a gunfight or anything. No, let's do it dramatic, a real dramatic ending.
Yeah, if you're going to go out,
you're going to go out with such, I mean, it's going to be atomic, baby.
Yeah. Right, because if you're the villain, how fun is that? And if you are going to die, like I always tell my students when we're doing like a play or something, like do it well, like agonize and like die all over the stage for a minute. Yeah.
So it was one of those things like the kids were totally on board. They were all in on this. They helped me write that first season. So the very first season of King of Silence, and I encourage you to listen to it.
Yeah.
The very first season was, I would say 50 to 75% was written in the classroom with my class, with my students, my ESOL students, and they all fed off each other ideas, and we put them up on the board, and we put them up there, and we pieced together these characters and the connections, and this weirdo king, who was all off his rocker, and I played the king, of course, and Naomi was the Abigail girl, and it was just fantastic, and I included some of the ESOL teachers are involved. The Queen is one of my fellow ESOL teachers.
Cool.
The King has a therapist, and he's an ESOL teacher. The guy who's the narrator, because there's characters, and then there's the narrator. The narrator is an ESOL teacher. So, like, 90% of the cast is ESOL.
That's cool. Okay, now where do we listen to this? Is this on YouTube or where is?
This is on podcast. You can look it up on Apple Podcast or iHeartRadio or Spotify. It's everywhere. It's literally
cool.
In fact, we just got a notification this week. I thought it was straight because we ended the show like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I got a notification that it made the top 10 list of the the top 10 list of the monarchy podcast to listen to in 2025. It made that list.
Wow, that's so cool.
People are like even now, people still send me, "Hey, so are you gonna do any new episodes?" So like, I feel like okay, I'm gonna add that to the list. I gotta make new episodes, even though the season's over. So I call it the lost episodes,
Yeah,
and those I'm only gonna give snippets, and the rest you're just gonna have to become a patron of the show and listen to them there. And that's I was saying, you know what? At this point, it costs me too much time
hmm,
that I'm not gonna do it for free now. If you're really serious about it, if you want more, you got to at least pitch in $1,
yeah,
just $1.
good. I'm glad you're doing that, Jose. You need to take in the profit. Okay, so two questions on that one. When you put it on iHeart and all of those other platforms, is that like free and you're able to post it there, or did you pay for that?
So I pay for this. I pay for this platform. It's called Buzzsprout.
Buzzsprout.
Buzzsprout.com is the actual platform. So I pay them monthly, right?
Oh,
Because I do generate revenue from this. Even now, I still make money.
good. You should.
Uh,
That's residuals. Yeah.
Residuals for it. Not a lot, but it's enough to pay for itself at least, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
Um, and so uh, that's the service, and they send it to all the other
That's all of
platforms.
them.
And
Oh,
even YouTube got it too. So YouTube has
that's
all the episodes on YouTube as well. It's literally
oh.
everywhere. All you got to do if you Google the King of Silence. In fact, I'm going to send you the
That's
link
kind of
to it.
nice too that you can send to one company and then they're doing that for you
They
because
do
you
it
have
all
so
for
many
you. Yeah.
different creations going on. That's a great way to delegate so that your mind can keep flourishing with your creations and then someone else can do that side of it for you.
Yeah. And I was talking. It's funny because it's yesterday on Friday. Yesterday was a PD day, so we were all kind of like there in the room in the school, and
Yeah.
I'm talking to all my colleagues, and I said, some of the people that were the voice actors, over the years, some of them passed away, like they died, so I can't use them anymore. And one of them was like, "Yeah, you can." I'm like, "How?" And he goes, "Well, you deep fake them." I'm like, "What?" So I can take the old recordings from these voice actors that are no longer with us, feed it into the AI, and the AI will reproduce that person's voice.
Wow.
I could just type the script, and that person will say what I want him to say, even though he's dead. Isn't that crazy?
Wow. What
And
AI do you use for that?
yeah. So like and like the one who plays the queen, she's always giving me a hard time. I love her to death, but she gives me a hard time all the time. And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna deep fake you because you give me too much of a hard time."
This is why actors were on
Like, do
strike.
it, do it. I don't want to work with you anymore. I don't want to work with you either. Well, it's just a playful thing.
This was the actor strike. This is what it was
Yeah.
all about, people. This is what it was all about. That's
You
hilarious.
got to behave yourself, or I'll deep fake you too.
Okay, I see why now you're saying that you're so energized because you've put these creations out into the world, and then look, you still have fans coming back to you talking about it, right? And so it
Yeah.
kind of like feeds energy back to yourself. Like this is
Yeah.
pretty
We were
cool.
talking about the musician thing. I did that
Yeah.
for 6 years, and man, let me tell you, it was the biggest ego boost I ever got. People were sending me messages, email. I'm telling you, Tess, long emails, weird emails. And people's like, "I understand what you mean when you did this," and they give me this whole book of all the things they broke down about. And they're like, "You're." I even got a call. This is no lie. This is kind of weird. I got a call, and somebody asked me if I was a member of the Scottish Rite of the Masons.
Wow.
And I'm like, "Excuse me?" She goes, "It sounds to me like you know way too much about the Scottish Rite." I'm like, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man. What are you talking about?" Apparently, some of the things that I wrote was a little too close to home.
Wow.
You gotta listen to the show, Tess. It's
Oh
really.
my gosh. Yeah, I've got to listen to it. And so does
It's
the
got
audience.
everything you can imagine. It's got aliens. It's got reptoids. It's got Illuminati. And I'm Catholic. In the show, the Pope is a corrupt person. Like he's very very corrupt, and he's against the king, and he's conspiring with others to try to take him out. The Pope, right?
Wow.
Yes. And so like, eventually he gets killed, and then they elect a new pope, and this new pope is an American pope, and he's a black American pope, right? Imagine the scandal. And so
Okay.
in this one, but see, he's even more corrupt than the other one. So it's like, Oh, this is the big. That's the thing I love about that first class, that ESOL class. They helped me develop the story because they instill one thing in me. So just as much as we teach our ESOL kids are teaching us if we're receptive.
Yeah,
My ESOL kids taught me, Mr. Torres, if you're gonna do the story, make it big, make it bigger than big. And so, like, it was none of these concepts in the story are small. I mean, you have your characters and these inner
yeah,
stories and whatnot, these relationships, but
yeah.
the story is so big that it takes engulfs the entire planet.
That is so cool. When I
That
started,
comes straight from my kids. It comes from my students.
right? When I started learning about podcasts, I started teaching. Well, my brother had a podcast for years. I don't know. He was always ahead of time. So he had a sports podcast. And then later I started like teaching podcasting to my students. So for several years they were making podcasts. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to do it too. But yeah, I think that they taught me a lot as well. So yeah, it's really beautiful how they were telling you, make it bigger than big. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
make
neat.
it bigger than big. That came straight from my students' mouths, and it's been
That's a
like that.
good like mantra to remember
Yeah.
too. Like that's really
Make it,
beautiful
that
because
should be something you should incorporate in your life. Make it bigger than big, Mr.
yeah, I'm
Bigger
down.
than big.
Oh my
And
God.
you take off. You're gonna take off too.
That's
Whatever I
fascinating.
can do to contribute, man.
Oh my gosh, this is a great conversation.